So let's read more in depth about King Solomon and King Rehoboam. And we're also going to read about some of the prophets today. Now, as we left off, God granted King Solomon, because King Solomon asked him, he granted him unsurpassed wisdom and riches and honor. And also God made it so that King Solomon had a lot of riches, because King Solomon was designated to be the one that was going to build God's temple. And he did. And you could see some cracks in the armor already, because it took him 7 years to build God's temple that God asked him to do, and is beautiful. But then it took him 13 years to build his own house, which is even bigger than God's temple. So you could see, I don't know if that's necessarily a problem, but when you make something for yourself greater than something you make for God, I don't know. Well, one day, the queen of a land called Sheba heard of the great riches and blessings that God had given King Solomon. She took a journey to visit King Solomon to see if these reports are true. She asked King Solomon difficult questions. He was able to answer every one of her questions beyond her expectations. The wisdom, wealth, and blessings that God had given King Solomon had taken Queen of Sheba's breath away. King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba exchanged exceedingly valuable gifts, treasures, and riches with each other. The Queen of Sheba then went back to her own land. And you can read that 1 Kings chapter 10, verses 1 to 13. With the Queen of Sheba and other leaders coming to King Solomon to listen to him speak his wisdom to them, that is a foreshadow of what's going to happen with Jesus in the future. Again, Jesus said he's written about all through the Old Testament. If you look for him, you'll find him. In Jesus' second coming, in the millennium reign, 1,000 years he's on earth, in the future, what's going to happen is he's going to set up his kingdom and his throne in Israel, in Jerusalem. And leaders from all over the world and common people are going to flock to Jerusalem to hear Jesus speak to them and give them his great godly wisdom for them to follow. And you can see a foreshadow of this with King Solomon. Now, despite King Solomon being the wisest man in the world, as he got older, he began to go against what God told him to do. God told King Solomon not to marry any women that worshiped other gods, because they would pull Solomon away from God to worship their gods. And God warned King Solomon repeatedly, I will be with you if you walk in my ways, but if you will leave me to worship other gods, you will be destroyed. Additionally, a man is only supposed to have one wife. King Solomon had 700 wives and 300 concubines. So his lust completely just ran out of control. Many of these women that he married and his concubines followed other false gods. And they pulled King Solomon away from following our God to follow their false gods. Some of these so-called gods involved demon worship, which included some extremely evil things such as human sacrifices. You know, it's an example of God can give you a great gift, but you have free will, and you have to use your free will to decide if you're going to use the gift he gave you as intended. You know, I used an example last time. God could give you the most intelligent mind ever. You can use that intelligent mind to bring world peace, or you can use your intelligence to make weapons that blow the world up and kill everybody. Now with Solomon, God gave him unsurpassed wisdom. He used it only partially. He used it to tell other people what to do. The Psalms and the Proverbs and all these different things are King Solomon's wise instruction to other people on how they should live their life in bits of wisdom. But he didn't follow the wisdom God gave him as a gift in his own life. And as a matter of fact, he did very, very unwise things, and he really went off the rails in his own personal behavior. What King Solomon did by marrying 700 women and 300 concubines and following their false gods and horrible religious practices, this greatly angered God. God said that because Solomon disobeyed him and was worshiping false gods and demons, God would take 11 out of the 12 kingdoms that King Solomon now ruled out of the hands of his son in the future, and other people would rule them. Now, up until this point, King Solomon had total peace in his kingdom while he was following God. Because of King Solomon's rebellion against God's direct instructions to him, he warned him several times, do not follow other gods. God took his protection of King Solomon away. This allowed numerous enemies of King Solomon to rise up and give him trouble. King Solomon ruled Israel for 40 years. He started out following God, and all went exceptionally well for him. He then disregarded God's warnings. He turned away from following God, and then he had major problems in his kingdom and for himself. King Solomon eventually died, and his son Rehoboam